So what happens this week is someone brings in a USB stick. It's a tiny little stick that big. It's quite funny, isn't it? The technology. Hey, what's that?
Locked away.
Locked away, that's right. 50 years ago it would have been a pile of papers. Now a USB stick. And that has the future for 1.5 million residents. It's quite extraordinary, isn't it? What do you think of the Unitary Plan? This is the big news this week. Gareth?
Yeah,
up,
look, we
up and out, and more intensification.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone through it. We think it's pretty good. We're urging the Auckland Council to ratify it. There's some problems with it,
like
particularly of Māori special areas. There's some questions there and concerns we have. But look, Auckland needs to push on. We think it agrees with us that we need to develop the areas that are already developed, where people live. A little bit of sprawl is all right, but the government's got to step up and make sure there's good quality public transport and infrastructure.
What does it mean for those who are not Aucklanders, Tracy? People like, you're in us. So you're in Warkworth, right?
So I live in the supercity of Auckland. Rodney was 46% of the landmass, 5% of the population. We were dragged kicking and screaming into the supercity of Auckland. We're not connected by any transport. None of the transport projection plans have us on it. They all stop at Orewa. We're a satellite town. Our rural-urban boundary has been pushed out.
How many more houses in Warkworth?
We're going from 10,000 dwellings to 20,000 dwellings in the next 20 years with no water.
No water?
There's no water. There's no way to provide the water. At the moment, we pull it out of the Maharangi River, and the Sanderson bore will not pull enough water for those people. But so it's a really interesting process, and it's interesting you say on a memory stick, and it was only digitally available. We can't get broadband in our area, so actually most of the people
no water, no broadband. All right, I'll come to you guys very, very shortly. But Hayley, I want to know from the audience. I mean, what's the future for a city? I mean, is intensification a better way to go for a city anywhere, or is it okay to, to sprawl out?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you should ask me, but I'm going to ask you. Do you think? Would you be upset if you had a big housing development spring up next to your house?
No, I think I'd want to live in it if I could afford it.
Okay, so we obviously want more houses. Can I take it you're a renter?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you have to say to those NIMBYs?
I think that they had a chance to get into the housing market when they were about my age, but older maybe, and that they need to allow our generation to get into, and that means more houses on less land closer to where we work and play.
All right, what about over here? Do you mind if I ask you a question? Would you rather live in the centre of the city in an apartment building or further away with a little bit of land?
Well, I mean, I grew up in the country, so I'm always going to be inclined to having more land. I'm not a city person at heart, so...
What if we bring the apartment dwellings to you?
Again, I don't think apartments really belong in the country. I don't know. It's a difficult... It's like, if you're looking at growing a city, obviously apartments are a necessary thing. So it's a choice of which lifestyle you prefer. Like, if you want to live in the city, you've got to expect to have to put up with living in an apartment, or you make the sacrifice to live out of town, where you can expect to have a bit of land.
Exactly. You can't have it all, Wallace.
No, indeed. Hey, Nook, what about you? I mean, the government has laid the blame for Auckland health crisis on poor urban planning. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I hopefully this AUP is actually going to address the really sort of fragmented way that urban development has happened in Auckland and a number of other cities as well. I think the most important sort of part of this is that the bottom line really very much is about freeing up land and then being able to build houses very, very quickly. And Christchurch is probably the best example. It is the best example in New Zealand where that actually happened.
Tell me, Nook, would you live in an apartment in the middle of the city?
Yes, I would.
I'm sorry, but hang on. I live here, and I just want to put this. The government has actually, aside from the Unitary Plan, has come up with all these SHAs, Special Housing Accord areas, right? They've put them in there over the top of the Unitary Plan. No democratic process whatsoever. Most of Aucklanders were consulted for the Unitary Plan and decided where the rural-urban boundary lies. Do we live in a democracy or not?
I think it's a real step forward, though, with exactly what's happened. I mean, it's all part of a very comprehensive plan to actually be able to...
What are you laughing at? What are you laughing
get
for,
houses
Chris?
comprehensive.
Comprehensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is comprehensive.
All right, so what do you make of the Unitary Plan? What do you do differently?
Look, I think we're roughly happy, similar to what Gareth has said, but there was proposed a requirement for affordable housing to be there in the mix if developers were building more houses. That's not there now, so you can build 15 houses or more, but if there aren't any affordable, what about people who want to buy their first
What
home?
about houses? Where are people going to work?
Here's one thing that the Greens said today. Was it today? I think Greens want house prices to be cut in half over time. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Haven't you
great to
just-
finally
have you-
see some political courage from a political leader, because when it's 10 times the median income, we're going on down the track towards a bubble, and the way the government's going, which is blaming everyone but not looking in the mirror,
Gareth,
we're going to have terrible consequences.
Have you
if it
just lost the
crashes.
election with that?
No, we're standing up for people who want to get into a home, who want a rational housing market that is not 10 times the median income, that's more normal around the world, which is 3 to 4, and we want to make sure that we don't lock a whole generation out of home ownership.
Okay, let's talk to your
But lastly,
partner.
Wallace, and I want to say, what we're talking about is a measured long-term plan, not just leaving it to crash as the current government is planning to.
All right. Well, let's talk to your partner. Do you agree with what Gareth says?
No, I agree that we need a measured long-term plan, but it also needs to...
And 50%, down 50%?
No, it needs to be rational, and I don't think that's rational. Again, a lot of people who have got mortgages who don't want to see their house value decrease and have negative equity in their houses. So, yes, you need a long-term plan, but not that's going to... have people paying off a mortgage that isn't the same value as their house.
This is a fundamental disagreement with the Greens.
Can I make a point about the comprehensive plan? I mean, when you look at it, RMA reform, that's the first one. I mean, we've just introduced a $1 billion housing infrastructure plan. The next one is that there's a consideration, though, of having an independent urban development authority.
All very good. I just want to ask you, and maybe you, Chris, why should we care? Why should we care about the Unitary Plan?
Because...
if you live out of Auckland, why should we care?
Because when Auckland sneezes, everyone else catches a cold.
All right. Why should we care?
It's our biggest city. If people can't afford to live there, then we're all in trouble.
Yeah.
Why should we care? Why should we care?
Because they're going to force it on you. So the reason why you should care is they're going to force amalgamations on you if you don't see how bad the amalgamation of Auckland has happened.
But that's a good thing, though, isn't it?
No,
Because
it is
the
not.
supercity has worked.
Not. The supercity has not worked. It has not worked for Rodney. It has not worked for the north of Auckland. People don't even know we're in it, but we're in it and we're in a hole.
Why should we care?
Because our economy is pretty fragile. The government keeps kicking cans down the road. They won't address or face up to the big challenges, and a housing crash would be the worst thing for Kiwis' jobs, prosperities and families.